Hey folks, welcome back to Markelly Farm. We're back on the Cub today. We hope to make it red. If you want to watch the process, come on along. Got a beautiful day for painting out here. Got some international red paint to shoot on this thing. And then most of our painting will be done. We still got headlights in the hood and one rear work light that we need to paint. But we can start reassembling after we get all this painting done. We'll wait a couple days, let the paint cure real good. We'll start putting her back together. It's Wednesday today. The parade is Saturday of next week. So we have a little bit of time. This is doable. Got to get it back together, get it back running, get the hood on, and we can make that first parade. Remember, we also got the wagon going on too that we need to finish up that we'll get back on the next couple days, but that project's almost complete. So I've got all the prep work done. I didn't want to bore you with any of that. So we're ready to get paint the gun and get going. Alrighty friends, everything is finally red. Isn't that pretty? That's such a beautiful color red, I think. International red. So we're getting further and further along the process, folks. It's not going to be long now. We've got 95% of our parts all painted up, ready to go back together. We're going to let this stuff out here sit all day. It's got plenty of time. It'll be dry to the touch completely when we go to put it away. We're going to take all the masking off of the tractor while everything's still nice and wet, so we're not peeling paint off. It's adhered pretty well. Shouldn't happen anyway, but that's the next step. Alright, we got most of the masking tape off. I'm going to leave the wires taped up because dirty stuff falls out of there, so wait till this is nice and cured, and that way we could just blow the dirt off, no problem. But look at this. She's Butte Clark. Got like a 20-foot paint job. It looks good from 20 feet. Actually, it's pretty good. It came out really nice. This Rust-Oleum Farm and Implement paint just lays down beautifully. Even if it looks rough going on, like you're not going to get a good smooth finish, it will just lay down just smooth as glass. You can see our intake manifold and exhaust manifold. We made those black, if you remember. We still got the cover on the carburetor down there. But absolutely love it. It's going to be hard waiting trying to put this thing back together, but I'm going to wait. Got the rest of our parts over here. I just absolutely love International Red. It's like my favorite red. Just beautiful red. Got all our control rods painted, and our drawbar and our side panels. Everything's deciding to blow around today in the wind. Got some little specks of stuff on our paint, but you don't dare touch it right now. Wait till it completely dries and that'll just rub right off. Especially like bugs, you just rub it off. All it'll be left is their little tiny legs, and you can't see those. Beautiful. All right, everything's nice and cured out in that sun. It's super dry to the touch, so we pulled everything back in the shop here. I grabbed my little clamps out of our mineral spirits bath we had them in to clean all the grease and everything off of them. We decided to go silver on these because that's what they are originally. They're galvanized color when they come. So tomorrow we're going to get the hood and the tank out. We'll pull those headlights off. I've got a couple other lights over here that I need to pull apart and combine to make one light for the rear light back here. So we'll get those pulled apart, get the glass pulled out of them. We'll strip down our hood, and our fuel tank is all one piece. We need to rinse the fuel tank just a little bit. There's hardly anything in there. It's very super clean, but probably pour some diesel in there and swish it around just to get any loose material that may be in there. So we'll try to get this at least primed tomorrow. So we've got all of our black parts painted. We can start mounting things. I don't get my fan belts till day after tomorrow, so we won't be able to put the fan and everything back on till then. But we can start putting this thing together. We can put the throttle on there. I've got fabric loom to redo the whole wiring harness. The wires look good. It's just the fabric wrap, the loom around the outside is messed up. So we'll recover all that. We need to get a 6-volt battery and a 7-foot battery cable to get up here to the starter from the battery box. But we'll pick that up in town. So stick with us. Well, good morning, folks. We are back. We got about an inch of rain last night, so it's pretty nasty wet. We wanted to go out and hoe in the garden a little bit this morning, but that's not going to happen. It's been a couple days. We've let the paint on the Cub cure a little bit. So we're going to take this opportunity to start bolting stuff back on this thing. A lot of this stuff here and a lot of that stuff up front there. My goal today is to get everything bolted on that's just loose, and to work on the wiring stuff and getting the hood and everything prepped later. So let's start bolting things on. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the throttle bracket connected. That would be these couple items right here. Throttle bracket is on. We're not going to put the linkage on yet. I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install our lower water neck, which is this one right here, while the starter's still off, because there's more room to do that. Alright, we got the lower water neck on. It was quite a chore wrestling this new hose on because they're pretty tight, and to get our bolts to line up here. But we got it. We used a little of this ultra gray gasket maker, just a thin film on the gasket in between the water neck and the crankcase motor. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bolt our fan assembly on there. We've got the new fan belts in yesterday, so we can get that hooked up. Okay, to put the fan assembly on, you put your main belt on first, and then your generator belt, and then your nut fits in this slot. Keeps your back nut from turning, and then you tighten it with this wrench here. So now that all the belts are on, we can pull the whole unit up to snug up this belt. It doesn't have to be super tight because it doesn't take a lot to spin this fan. And then we just tighten this nut up when we get tight. All right, we're all tightened up. You can see it's not terribly tight, but even spinning the fan, I can spin the motor. And there's not a lot of tension, so you're good. Takes a pretty thin wrench to get in here. It's a 13/16 nut, but just a standard end wrench will get in there. A crescent wrench won't fit because it's too wide. And I don't like using crescent wrenches most of the time anyway because you round off your nuts. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hang the starter, and then we can probably come hang the generator as well. Well, we got the starter on, we got the generator on. The generator's not all the way on until we get our upper water neck on, because there's a bracket that comes off the upper water neck that ties into the top of the generator here. So this won't be completely installed until we put that on. So what better time than to put the radiator on. That way, once we get it set, we can get the top water neck put on and then tie all this together. Okay, before we put our radiator on, we have to put our shroud back onto the fan, because after the radiator's in, you can't get the shroud in there. Now some people have cut their shroud in half and made it a two-piece shroud, which is a pretty cool idea, but we haven't done that. So to put our radiator on, it's ready to go. We're going to put some of our sealant on the bolster down here, and then we'll put our gasket on. We'll center it up where it needs to be, make sure all our holes are in alignment. We'll let that set up for a little bit so it's not going to move around. Then we'll put another thin coat of that sealant on the bottom of our radiator, and then we'll set our radiator. Now these back bolts on the radiator, you have to use a long extension to tighten those up to get in there. But all these side bolts you can just go by just going around the outside. Now our radiator core supports, they go on top of the radiator. They help hold the sides of it down. And then we have these two hold down brackets. One of them goes right here in the front. They cover 4 bolts. And then another one here in the back. We were missing the one in the back, and this one wasn't actually on when we bought the tractor, but it'll have everything on it now. Got our gasket glued down pretty well. Just got to make sure our corners here stay out where they need to be, because these things, cork gaskets, stretch around a little bit. But it's doing a pretty good job holding it down. Like I said, we'll let this cure a little bit to kind of glue it down, because we don't want it moving around when we go to put the radiator on. But it's looking real good. Kelly brought me out some lunch. She made some pulled pork pizza. Yummy! Love that woman. Okay, we put a little sealant on the bottom of the radiator. The cork was already glued down pretty much. It wasn't going to move. And then we just finger started all of our bolts all the way around. The back ones are a little tricky. What I do is I hold the bolt down on the bottom, and then I get the long extension down through the top, and I twist the long extension to get the bolt started. It wasn't terrible. And some of you may be thinking, why didn't you put the fan assembly in after the radiator? Well, you can't do that because you can't get the belt over the pulley. So that's got to go on first. It's the only way around it. But we got her done, so I've got the bolts just snugged up, probably, I'd say 20 pounds per square inch maybe on each one of them. Not very much, probably even 10. I wouldn't even say 20. Now when you put your core supports on, there's only a nut welded on one side. So make sure that nut is to the front, because that's where your hood connects. There's no nut in this one. So make sure you don't put this bracket on the other side. They are left and right. So we're going to let that set up a little bit. We'll work on a few other things. And then once that RTV's got a chance to set up, we'll come around and we'll do one more snug on all those bolts, go around in a circle until everything feels right, everything feels about the same torque. That gasket cork is real forgiving. It'll seal. But you want to make sure it's going to compress a little bit. Just give it some time. So I think we're going to come in, we'll put our regulator on here, and then we can also put our coil on here. And I think before we put our regulator on, we're going to have to connect some wires, because otherwise it's going to be back in here behind the generator where we can't get at it. Okay, we got the coil mounted. We're going to wait on the regulator until we can pull the wires around and connect them, and then we'll mount the regulator. So I got a new cap and rotor, so I think I'm going to go ahead and put that on. I also got points and a condenser, but if those are working, might as well leave them in and keep the 2 new ones I have for when those eventually go out. Got our new distributor cap and rotor on. It's pretty simple. They only go on one way. The only thing you got to be careful on is the cap. There's a weep hole in the bottom that you need to put down. I don't know if it'll fit on the other way around, but just pay attention to the way you pull them off and just put them back on the same way. I think we are at a point where we can go ahead and mount the air cleaner over here. That's that canister looking thing right there. It mounts right here to the front of the block. There's two bolt holes there, right here. We also need to pull the tape off of our crankcase vent there. The air cleaner's mounted. Now we can put the air tube back on that goes to the carburetor. with the two new hoses that we have to go in between. Before we put our hose on, it'd probably be easier now to fix this choke lever, get it clamped down like it needs to be, because right now it's kind of spinning independently of the choke flapper. So we'll see if we can take that off and make sure we can tighten it on the shaft here. Cut our lever off. So I think what we're going to do is we'll pull the screw out. We'll get some sandpaper and we're going to open up this crack here a little bit, make it a little wider so it'll squeeze down tighter on the shaft on the choke arm. So we'll go do that real quick and we'll clean it up. It's a little greasy. All right, we opened that up and we even added a new screw because the old screw was kind of wore out. So let's put this on and tighten her up. Okay, that worked out perfect. We got it tight. So now we can work the choke with our lever. Now the lever is pulling straight like this. So you want your lever on the carburetor to be kind of at like a 30-degree angle. So when you pull it, it goes like this. If it goes like this, you'd be pulling against it. So just like that. Okay, we got our air tube on and our two hoses. Now I think we're going to go through and we're going to retorque our radiator, make sure that we're still snug, and then we'll probably put the shroud on. Okay, we could tell that our cork gasket had collapsed just a little bit, so we went through and torqued all of our bolts again, and you can see the cork squeezing out all the way around. So I feel real good about this. We got about the same torque all the way around. So let's get the shroud on now. You remember we had a terrible time with these screws because they were just standard slotted heads. Got brand new screws. They got hex heads and slots. So I can just use a socket on it now. I don't have to worry about stripping the heads out. Okay, shroud's on nicely. We spun the engine around. The fan's not hitting anywhere on the shroud. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to put our crankcase vent back on. It goes from this little nipple here down to this little nipple here on the front of the motor. What that does is if there's any blow-by inside the motor, it recycles it back through and reburns it. The crankcase vent is back on now. I think since the radiator is all nailed down, we can go ahead and put on the upper water neck and hose that goes in here. Okay, we did the same thing with this gasket. We put our sealant down. We glued the gasket down. We're going to let it set up just a little bit. We've got our neck ready to go. The hose is already connected to the bottom. We'll just slide it up onto the radiator and set it down right where it needs to go and get the bolts in. Okay, water neck installed. Now we can get our last generator bracket put on. Last generator bracket's on, tightened up, our belt's tight. So I think now we're going to put all of our linkages back on. First one is our starter linkage. Put brand new cotter pins in them. Never use your old ones. So now I think we'll go do the choke on the other side. Okay, we got that one connected. It was a bear to get that cotter pin in there. It had to come in the top with a pair of long reach needle nose to put that thing in there. Finally got it in. Remember, it didn't have one in it when we took it off. But our choke's working good now. We can work it from the operator station again. One more linkage is for the throttle. So we'll run that through and connect it to our throttle handle that we have now. We can control the throttle. Throttle is all hooked up. It's got a little clip here that keeps this part of the bar from running around too much. So you can see it works our throttle. So next thing I'm probably going to do is we'll put the spark plug wires on. We remember the firing orders down here on the block, so can't remember it. There it is, and one is always in the front. So we'll get this thing wired up, and we remember that this is one right here. So we're building our plug wires. They come with one end on them, so we put them on the spark plugs. We put them through the keeper up here, and we know this is number 1 here on the distributor, and the distributor turns this way, so our firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So we started out with number 4, which was the furthest one down there. Did the coil wire, and then we did the number 3 wire. So now we're going to do the number 2 wire that goes way back here, and then the number 1 wire on the top, which we put over here. So how you do this is you cut the wire 5/8 of an inch longer than what you need, and then you take your wire strippers on the number 10 setting, the 10 gauge setting, and you strip your wire back 5/8 of an inch, and that exposes the inner core. So we'll do that and we'll show you what's next. So you strip your wire 5/8 of an inch, and then you fold it back over yourself, the conductor on the inside. And then you want to put a boot on here, a rubber boot. And then you're going to put one of these on there with a wire folded into this area here. And then take a pair of pliers and crimp these wings down. And that holds it on the end while the wire makes connection with the metal here. So we'll do that and we'll show you what that looks like too. Okay, we got our boot on. Some good old-fashioned spit works the best on that. Slides it right on. And then when you crimp your piece on, your goal is to almost get those wings touching. So that's on there very securely now and not going to come off. And it's underneath making connection to the metal. So we'll push this in the correct hole, and then we'll slide this boot down. And as you push on the boot, you're pulling the wire out of the boot a little bit, and it'll seat right in there. All right, we got number 2 seated. So all that's left is number 1. We've opted to use the 90-degree boots on there, but they do make just straight boots if you have the room. But we're limited on space, so we use the 90s. They send both of them. Okay, spark plugs are on. We've got just about everything on here that we can put on until we put the hood on, because everything else, these pipes, the radiator, everything else got to come through the hood. So we've got a battery coming in a couple days. We've already bought the battery cable. We're going to mess with all this wiring, clean it up. I've got some fabric loom to redo some of the covering on the wiring. Once we do all that, we'll probably fire this thing back up after all the silicone and everything dries. In a few days, we'll fill the radiator full, and we'll get this thing started again. And then we'll get the hood done, put the hood on, and then all we have left is the stickers. Oh, did you see our little floor mat here that we got? Keep our dirty boots from scuffing up our pretty red floor plate here. All that is a rear seat floor mat for like a vehicle. But they sell them individually because they know people like using them on their tractors. So I've got a different fuel setup that I'm doing that I'll let you in on. This is the setup we're going to use. We got a new fuel sediment bowl. We just got it temporarily in here because I want to clean all this up and finish this before I screw this back in and seal it. But we've added this fitting here, and we're going to go with hose. We're going to ditch the metal line because it's too hard to deal with. The rubber hose is so much easier, and then we can put an inline filter somewhere. But I want the ability to drain the fuel out of my tank. So I'm putting in this valve here. So we'll probably put a nipple on here and then be able to put a hose on it when we want to drain the tank. We don't want gas sitting in the tank for a long time getting all varnished up. So the tractor's going to sit for a while. We'll use this to drain. So that'll work out sweet. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for this video here. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed putting this thing back together. It's a really fun puzzle. And looking beautiful. Just absolutely love it. You can't beat the looks of it with all the parts back on it. And then when we get the hood on with all the decals and all that, it's going to be super cool. So until next time, folks, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here on the farm. We're going to get this tractor going.